It is on to Buffalo with SNL. Landry Locker, Cody Stoots here with you, hours away from the first practice of the week. We'll be out there. There's a lot of stuff that we need to look at. But this has already been kind of an interesting matchup with everything that's gone on in the days leading up to preparation. First, you had the Texans open as a 1-point favorite. We'll get into why the hell that would be. Now the Bills are a 1-point favorite. And the Bills, they're really, really banged up, and they're going to be without Von Miller. Well, let's start with the Von Miller thing because he's a local guy, local legend around here. How do we feel about the absence of Von Miller when it comes to the Buffalo Bills?
It's a huge break for the Texans. That's their top pass rusher. I mean, he's the guy that presents the most pressure from that defense. He's tied for the team lead in sacks, and that's absolutely a guy that you could have seen in a key moment or throughout the game, just absolutely wreaking havoc on this Texans offensive line that has had some iffy pass block production through 4 games. So no Von Miller in this matchup. That's huge for the Texans. I don't know that the Bills have a guy that they're ready to just thrust into that spot that can even give you some of what Von Miller has. They got another guy on the other side in Rousseau who's pretty decent, but he's not Von Miller. And I mean, think about throughout Von Miller's career, how many times in a big moment you've seen him come up with a huge play against the opposing quarterback, and now that's not on the table for the Buffalo Bills on Sunday. And unless they knew this was coming down, it's not like they have a whole bunch of time to just kind of figure things out with life without Von Miller. They got 3 practices, and then it's game time, and then you got to figure out how to live without Von Miller out there rushing the passer.
Well, the other thing is the Texans have kind of made a little bit of a habit of being in 3rd and long, and Von Miller's not the 3-down lineman that he once was, but he's still a handful on 3rd and long. So if, and hopefully that's a thing of the past, and hopefully with Mixon coming back, that's something that they don't do. But if the Texans were to perhaps find themselves in 3rd and long like they have very often, it's going to be easier for CJ Stroud because there's no Von Miller. The other thing, and last night on the stream, I decided to just kind of go eavesdrop on Doug McDermott just to hear what I think the Buffalo media often does a really good job of asking questions like that, that you wouldn't really like seek out. Like when you ask about D'Amico clock management, like just kind of seek out what they're saying. The theme seems to be that they're very banged up, specifically at safety. There was even a question about, do you call Micah Hyde and bring him back? And McDermott didn't dismiss it. McDermott said Micah's always something that we keep in touch with. So it wasn't like we like our guys. Like McDermott literally said, we always, that's always a possibility with Micah. So they're really banged up at safety. The urgency seems to be a little bit of an issue. And, oh, by the way, Josh Allen's banged up too. So the Bills are in a really, really, really roughish stretch because they're on a short week. They're coming from a place like Baltimore, where Baltimore can kind of physically beat up on you, and they have a quick turnaround. They have to go to Houston, and that's why I think this game is so huge. And I don't think this game can be undersold. And this is my reason as to why I think this is such a big ass game for the Texans. Last year, the Texans hosted the Browns in the playoffs, and that could have easily not happened if Jacksonville doesn't wet the bed. If they hadn't done that, they would have lost in the first round to Buffalo. I'm just spoiler alert. They would have gone to Buffalo and they would have lost to the Buffalo Bills, but it wouldn't have just been a typical loss. They would have had to go to Buffalo on Saturday. They would have had to sit around and watch the game be postponed. They would have had to wait till Tuesday to take their L in Buffalo to the Buffalo Bills. In December, January, Buffalo is the last place you want to go. And the Texans right now, if they beat the Bills, you'll be ahead of them in the standings. You know where this banged up Buffalo team plays next after they play the Texans? And this isn't a good football team, but this is probably the last place you want to go when you're banged up. You know where they go next?
Where?
To New York to face the Jets on that field. So, yeah. So Buffalo's going from facing Baltimore to facing the Texans to having to go to New York and play on that nasty-ass field. We've seen it like throughout history, and I'm just going through like my millennial history. Brett Favre couldn't win a Super Bowl for a while. And the reason for a lot of people thought was because he couldn't get home field advantage at Lambeau. He wasn't comfortable. He couldn't go do it. Peyton Manning with Brady, like when they went to New England, couldn't figure it out. You don't, if you're the Texans, the last place you want to play a playoff game. Kansas City, it gets a little bit rough, but it's not as bad as Buffalo. You don't want to go there. So given the fact that you're tied with the Bills in the standings, given the fact that I think this is what the Texans are thinking about, I mean, they won't say that they expect to win the division, but spoiler alert, I think at BetUS right now, it's like minus 350, minus 400 for the Texans to win the division. You're looking at things like this. You don't want to have to go to effing Buffalo in January, December. Winning this game, it decreases your chances, maybe not significantly, but it decreases your chances in a big way. You want to avoid that.
You want to have that option. You want to have that option of winning head-to-head against Buffalo and not having to go there and having the setup in the playoffs be that if it gets to that point where you – because, I mean, look, this is probably either the 2-3 or the 3-4. Like when we're looking at things in the AFC standings and we projecting out like where the Texans are going to be and where the Bills are going to be, I mean, they're finishing somewhere between 2 and 4 unless Kansas City slips up and then the one's available for them. So, you know, it's not that it's like some sort of first round matchup in Buffalo like you're talking about with last year. Like it's as you've won in the playoffs. Like you don't want to win and then have to go on the road to Buffalo. You'd rather them come to your joint and put that thing. And the inside-outside splits for C.J. Stroud in his career. There's a big difference. He is not nearly as good outside as he is in a dome. So you want to play as many dome C.J. Stroud games as possible.
Yeah, and that's not to say that eventually the Texans can't go gut out a win. I mean, I think the makeup of this team, especially moving forward, like with this core of guys, I think there'll be times where they'll go on the road and gut out a win. But
if you told me it was
Buffalo's hell.
If you told me it was week 1 Texans and they'd done that every week to everyone where they just ran over everybody and they were just mauling people on the ground with Joe Mixon in this offensive line, maybe I'd have a different perspective on it, but it's not. They've rushed the ball well one game. Joe Mixon's played 1.5 games. So unless Joe Mixon just turns into some absolute bulldozer with this offensive line when he returns from his injury, I still don't want to go to Buffalo. I want for the
nobody does. Well, here's the other, and Gunnar brings this up, and this is a real question, and this is something that we'll be watching for when we're both at practice, which we are every day. Myself, Cody Stoots. It is SNL Locker Room on YouTube. Cody Stoots on YouTube. Also H Football if you want the written word of the Texans. But we collab every Monday. I'm on live nightly at 10:30 p.m. He says Baltimore put the recipe for success against Buffalo Sunday night. Follow the recipe. I don't know if the Texans have those ingredients. We saw them run the rock well with Joe Mixon. The good news is you're getting Joe Mixon back. You're a better running team with Joe Mixon than you are with Cam Akers. I don't need to see anything happen with that. We know that regardless of how bad Indianapolis is, we know that. But I don't know if they have that recipe because that was just a complete bully ball with the rock, with the intermediate pass game. I know they were getting Justice Hill loose too as well. If that's a recipe, I don't know if the Texans have the butter, the sugar, whatever the hell you have to put in that bowl to make that cake.
That's like watching a fancy Food Network show and you're like, where do I even get that ingredient? Like, Hungarian smoked paprika? I don't have that.
What the hell is that?
I don't have that.
I can't even say that.
One of the things that if you go back and you read about Buffalo, Baltimore, or you watched it, one of the things that didn't show up at all is Ed Oliver for that Buffalo Bills defense. And I know a lot of Bills fans are super critical of him. You know, one of the reasons Ed Oliver didn't show up at all, because Tyler Linderbaum is the center for the Baltimore Ravens, and he can neutralize a guy like Ed Oliver. Juice Scruggs, I'm sorry, can't do that.
Yeah, and the guards have been very shaky.
Yeah, and the guards aren't going to be able to do that. So, it's easy to say, hey, do what they did. You don't have a 245-pound running back with a great offensive line, and you don't have at the same level of danger with the quarterback legs as they do with Lamar. So it's not. Look, do you want to run the ball better? Yeah, you have to. You're as poor as the Texans have been running the ball in the 3 games since Indianapolis, you've got to run the ball better. But you can't just sit here and be like, well, we're going to tee it up like Navy used to do and just run it down their throats. Like the Texans don't have the skills and the abilities to do that against the Bills.
Hey, shout out to Navy. They're playing some good ball right now.
Navy and Army are doing really well.
Both of them. The other thing about the Texans that I think we need to keep an eye on is, and today is going to be the first injury report, which it gives you context clues, but it's not like the end all be all. I do wonder these offensive linemen appear on the injury report because Tunsil, he obviously hurt his foot the other day. He came back in the game, but we know if Laramie doesn't have to practice, Laramie's probably not going to practice. So I wonder if we get in the routine of Laramie Tunsil not practicing, which we got into, which we've really been in since he's been here, if we're being honest.
You get the no practice Wednesday, the limited Thursday, the full Friday.
Yes, I wonder if we're going to get that. And then I think Kenyon Green's pretty banged up. He's battling through it. Let's be honest, he's not used to really the wear and tear of an NFL season. I think he's kind of finding his way there.
Well, and he got hurt in college seasons too. Like he'd be fighting through injuries in college.
Yeah, so I think Kenyon keep an eye on him, and then who knows what else happens. So I would keep a close eye on that. I would think that at least one or two of the linemen appear on the injury report in like limited capacity. That would be my guess. Then we go to what really matters. If the safeties are banged up and Tank Dell is back, I think that's big for the Texans. And I think they need to get Tank involved. And if that means Tank Dell, I know people are going to cringe when I say this. If that means Tank Dell's returning a punt every once in a while, so be it. You know, there seems to be like a trend with Tank Dell. I think it's a local thing. I think people are protective of Tank Dell, but there seems to be a trend where anytime he gets hurt, you want to blame somebody. Well, he shouldn't have been blocking close to the line of scrimmage. Oh, he shouldn't have been in the game late. I don't disagree with the in the game late and all that, but he's a playmaker. And he's the number 3 receiver on this team, and he's explosive in the return game. So I'm not sitting here saying that Tank Dell should, return every single punt, but let's be honest, you're not returning every single punt. A lot of times you're just catching it. And I would personally like to see Tank Dell used in the return game, and I would damn sure like to see him, especially with the safeties banged up for Buffalo. I would damn sure like to see him get back and add that element, that 3-headed monster at wide receiver that we anticipated seeing before the season started.
I'm with you on the punt returns. It doesn't have to be every time. Surprise Buffalo. Find a moment in the game where you feel like you want to steal a couple of yards and turn that into a big time moment for this offense and give them great field position. Doesn't have to be every time. Put Robert Woods back there, trusty Bobby Trees, just let him catch the ball, fair catch. Okay, get the offense out there. I know you're not in favor of, run a play for a guy, just run a play specifically for a guy, but Tank Dell has got to be closer to 2023 Tank Dell.
Are you calling for a Tank Dell reverse?
No, I don't want the gadget stuff, man. I want Tank Dell to be treated like Tank Dell was treated last year when they treated him like a real wide receiver, when they let him line up outside more than inside. And obviously Diggs being here changes where he's going to align and how he's going to align, but getting the ball in his hands, I mean, D'Amico Ryans, we're just a month plus removed from him standing at the podium and saying, every time Tank gets the ball in his hands, everyone should stand up because he's dynamic and he can do great things with the ball in his hands. And then they just can't get the ball in his hands as a wide receiver. They got the ball in his hands as a gadget guy. No more gadget Dell. I want go regular.
No more or not too much, or not the only piece of pie he gets.
Yeah,
You still want a little bit.
Yeah, a little bit, sure, but I don't want it to be his primary role and focus on this team like it was through the first few games that he was playing.
All right, so the Texans opened as a favorite. Why would the Texans open as a favorite? Now, the Bills are now the 1-point favorite, but if I were to ask you why would this Texans team be favored over this Bills team, what would your reasoning be? Go.
Concern about Josh Allen and him not being 100% would be the first thing for me. He gets banged up with the arm in the Baltimore game, and maybe there's some concern about that, and that gets settled within the first couple of days. And so the line adjusts that way, because I can't imagine that any of these players for the Bills that were going to be injured outside of Allen even have any effect on the line. Khalil Shakur, the safeties, one of their linebackers, like those aren't line movers. So I wonder if there was some built-in worry about Allen's shoulder, and then, hey, it's okay. And it's not like the line has had some drastic move. Like they probably just got a lot of money on underdog Buffalo, and it moved to them being in the favorite.
Yeah, I think so too. I think it's a little bit of a juggling act. But I would say just you're at home. It's a short week. They're very banged up at safety. That would be the reason why I think the Texans would be favored. And if they get mixed, I mean, let's be honest, if the Texans get Mixon back, I think it's I think it's a completely different dynamic to this squad.
Oh, absolutely. They can run the football again. Again, Joe Mixon's not going to solve everything, but Joe Mixon's going to fix some of the things that were wrong with the rushing attack. That's going to get baked into the way that that's maybe part of it too, is like, okay, well, the Bills just got crushed. The other team ran on them, and the Texans are going to get Joe Mixon back. So maybe that keeps it close. I would have thought this game, 2 weeks ago or even a week ago, I would have probably put this game at, Bills 2.5, Bills 3, which would have made them, traditionally it's 3 at home, which made them like in Buffalo would have made them 6-point favorites. But, I think it's to me, it's Bills like 2.5 is kind of what the number should be.
Yeah. I would still not want to bet on this game. I'll be honest. Like there's
no chance.
I would maybe take the over 47. I think right now it's 47. Probably take the over, maybe, perhaps. Yeah. But yeah, I don't really feel like this is, I think it's a big opportunity for the Texans, but as far as like comfort level, Vincent asked, why is Stefon Diggs not in the slot? He's in the slot 61% of the time. He's actually been in the slot this year 61% of the time. I saw DJ Bieneme put that stat out. So
week 4 was the first game where he didn't have more slot reps than out reps.
Yeah, it's been 61%. So that I don't think is concerning. Who is in charge of deciding if we challenge the call or not? We lose extra timeouts. Bonehead. I think D'Amico was actually 3 of 4 on challenges last season.
I didn't feel like that was a bonehead challenge.
I thought it was a good challenge. It was a 33-yard gain, and it was a crucial play. I didn't really think that was like a terrible challenge. I thought Eberflus, like if we want to talk about Eberflus week 2, that was dumb. I don't think they have a problem when it comes to challenging stuff at all.
Can you remember a moment where you were adamant that D'Amico should challenge something and he didn't?
No, I haven't. And that's been something that I've watched closely because I'm kind of trying to get to know D'Amico as a coach. I thought that I thought that the clock management at the end of the last game was a little bit but I haven't thought that there was like a challenge problem. As a matter of fact, I thought they'd been pretty good at it. And even the one that they lost, I thought that was worth it for sure.
Let's see. D'Amico Ryans in his challenge career. Houston challenged the ruling. Play was upheld, overturned, upheld. So you got 2 upheld this year. He got the annoying thing about one of them is he got the challenge is first down or not. They moved the ball.
Yeah, that one was whack because I don't know, was that wording or what? You're talking about at the corner. It was when Diggs on third down. I think it was 3rd and 12. He went to the corner of the pylon. Kind of looked like he got it, but I guess was it the wording because they moved the spot. But I guess he just had to say challenging the spot instead of challenging it's a first down.
They challenged him as a first down.
I thought it was a first down anyways.
I also thought it was a first down.
I thought it was, but yeah, they actually moved it up.
Yeah. So I thought it was a first down. And they moved the ball, but the challenge was about the first down. So they didn't move the ball enough for a first down. So he lost the challenge. That was against the Bears.
I want to ask you about practice watch today, because obviously we're going to be watching 2 guys the closest. There'll be other guys that will appear on the injury report, but we're going to be watching Tank Dell. We're going to be watching Joe Mixon. That's going to be where most of our attention is. obviously, Joe Mixon, I think we would agree, is more important than Tank Dell. If we were going to have, which one would you rather have? Like, that would just be a hack-ass waste of time topic. Like, which one is more important? I think it's obvious that Joe Mixon, the drop-off from the guys behind him compared to the guys that can fill the void for Tank, it's significant, and we've seen, and they need to find a way to run the ball. So we'll agree on that, unless you want to embrace debate and say Tank Dell.
No, this is not first take Houston.
Do we think though that do we think that Tank Dell can resemble what he was last year with the current layout of this squad? That would be my question. It's a small sample size. He's been banged up. Do we think that we see like signs of the Tank Dell that we saw last year at some point? Are they able to implement him into this thing? Are you confident in that?
I am confident in it. And I just go back to CJ Stroud, and he's talked about it. And I feel like this ends up as a talking point for every NFL team every year. Well, not teams that are falling apart like the Jaguars, but every season it's like, hey, the first like 6 weeks, you're still just kind of feeling some things out. You're working into this, you're working into that, seeing how teams play you. The first 6 weeks, and CJ's even said it, hey, it takes time for us to hit a groove. It's like, okay, well, it's about time for that groove to show up. And I also think about this, and it's been one of the nerdy conversations about how, passing's down because teams want too high safeties. Teams want you to run the ball and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, yeah, can I just get Tank Dell the ball in space and like figure it out from there? Like, I don't care where the safeties play. Like, he beats guys one-on-one. Can I just get him the ball in space? Can I call a play where maybe he's the second read instead of the third read, or maybe he's the first read instead of the second read, and just get the ball to him? Like, that's really what I want to see from this offense, is just get the ball to Tank Dell, and it's going to work. Like, it's not like you're forcing the ball to some rookie who is trying to get his sea legs in the NFL. This is a guy who was on pace for 12 touchdowns, 1,200 yards last year. And get him the football in space, let him go to work. And after teams have to account for him, it's going to be easier to get the ball to Nico, and it's going to be easier to get the ball to Stefon Diggs.
Yeah, I agree. I think he can find his groove. I do think that I'm not as confident that we're going to see games where all three guys eat, though. Like, I don't know. Maybe that's an overreaction. I just don't think that's going to be a consistent thing where, this guy's got 85, that guy's got 115, and the other one's got like 105. I don't see that. And quite frankly, I think if you have Mixon, I think you're kind of changing the way you play a little bit. I actually think Mixon's going to be involved in the pass game a little bit too. And I think we're going to see a little bit of Joe Mixon out of the backfield once he gets his legs under him. I think Joe Mixon's probably not too fond of the Bills also. I think there's going to be an extra motivation there. Look, he's been in the situation where you're jockeying for position in January, whatever, and you're kind of the team that's on the edge of taking down the champs in Kansas City. He's been in that. And quite frankly, he's been in that area with the Bills. So, I mean, it's been Cincinnati and Buffalo the last 3-4 years that have been trying to take down the Chiefs. So he's probably going to have a little extra juice facing the Bills too. And we already know Diggs will. That's going to be one of the storylines. I saw that Jeremy Fowler put out a story about Stefon Diggs. I'm going to check that out and see what Jeremy Fowler put together. And I'm sure we'll hear from Diggs either today, tomorrow, Friday, whenever.
Yep. Yeah, the Fowler story is pretty good. Diggs declined to speak for it, but it's pretty good nonetheless.
Wait, he did?
Yeah, Diggs declined to speak to Fowler for the story.
Why does he hate Fowler?
I do wonder, when we do talk to Stefon Diggs this week, how much reflection, conversation in the past we are going to get out of him, because he's been pretty adamant that he doesn't really care to talk about the past that much. I mean, he's kind of had his piece and said his piece in the GQ article.
It's the week of the game, dude.
Yeah, but I mean, look, I'm just preparing you for what I believe the talking point.
I was gonna say, I'm focused on this.
I'm focused on this week's game.
Well, okay. Speaking of it,
okay, what do you know about those guys?
Speaking of it,
What do you know about those guys?
What do we got? What do you think about Buffalo? Do you
No, if you had an MVP vote, would it be for Josh Allen right now?
what do you hate about Buffalo? How does
It's pretty.
How does that cold weather treat you, Stefon?
It's pretty nice weather outside right now, huh, Stefon?
Yeah, I think you should embrace it, man. I think you should embrace it. It's not a distraction. I mean, we know what the deal is. Embrace the story, man. It's where you come from.
It is totally okay in the world of sports to root against your former teammates, especially the week you play against your former teammates. It's totally okay. Nobody is going to fault you for that.
What else are we looking for at practice today? I think it's just kind of going to shape up when it comes to the injury report. We'll see.
I worry about seeing any of these DBs on there because they only trust 5 guys from a defensive back perspective. So, if it's a Lassiter or a Stingley or a Bullock or a Murray or a Petrie, it's like, oh, who's filling in for them if they can't go? So they're on the attendance list real high. Mixon and Tank are at the top. You always make sure CJ's practicing, and then I'm going to try to find those defensive backs because those are the only guys they put on the field are those guys. And D'Amico Ryans, when I asked him about it on Monday, he was like, "Yeah, that's basically how we do things." It's like, okay,
Buffalo's more banged up though. I mean, that's the real story. Buffalo's more banged up.
They're way more banged up, and the Von Miller suspension basically counts as an injury. They're hurting, man.
Right now, you have CJ is 1-0 against Burrow, 0-2 against Lamar. This is going to be the first time he faces Josh Allen, and I don't think Josh Allen's going anywhere. I think the arrow, it's definitely not pointing up on Burrow right now. Can he flip the switch? Can they get in the playoffs and maybe flip the switch? But you're 1-0, 0-2 against Jackson. Still not a place. We'll get volume 3 of that in December. First time he'll see Mahomes, and this is the first time that he's going to see Josh Allen. So
now, all right, stay with me here. If Mahomes is the Brady, the guy that you have to go through every time, who's playing the various other roles of the AFC quarterbacks from that first decade of this century? Like who's Manning? Who's Rivers? Who are the various guys?
I think everybody's man. I think
it was going to be Burrow, because he broke through, but then he didn't win.
Yeah, it's got to be Manning was kind of. He got his one when they were down 21-0. I think they were down 21-0, and then they ended up coming back and they ended up beating the Bears in the Super Bowl. That was when Manning got the monkey off his back. It's not like there's really any back and forth right now. Like no one else is really eating. You had Brady eat in the middle of it, so that's really there's no comparison, no Rivers. Like they can all be Rivers if they want. I don't know that there's like a Manning. Like no one's winning like multiple MVPs and establishing themselves as like that's superior regular season quarterback. So I don't know that it's either of them.
I think Allen's going to be Manning. I think he's going to win a bunch of regular season awards and have a couple of issues here and there in the playoffs and maybe sneak through and get one. That's where I think he's going to end up. He's going to be the Manning to Mahomes' Brady.
Yeah, it's an early Manning. It could be like it could be like almost Troy Aikman and Steve Young and Brett Favre, but I don't know.
None of them or any of them until somebody else wins, I guess.
Yeah, that's just kind of where they're at. It's I guess it's Patrick Mahomes' world, and everyone else is just living in it.
Someone's going to be Flacco. Someone's going to fly through there, just win one, and be like, "How did he ever win one?"
Yeah, it'll be a rando. Burrow almost had his. He did not get his. So who knows? We'll see how it is. We'll be at practice today. We'll get more storylines going on. Night stream, locker room night stream tonight, and we'll both be on the scene, letting you know what's going on with the Texans. Again, Bills currently a 1-point favorite. Texans were a 1-point favorite. I don't know where the hell to go when it comes to betting this. I do know this, though. It would be in the Texans' best interest, assuming that they're going to be playing football during the postseason, to avoid Buffalo. This is a big opportunity to get a head start on doing that against a banged-up Bills team that after this has to go play on that Jets turf. For Cody Stoots, I'm Landry Locker. Always remember, when it comes to this Texan stuff, we're all in it together.
Eat good, sleep good, be good. We'll talk Texans again soon.